Welcome back to my BattleMap tutorial series. This will be our last video tutorial on the castles. We've been working on castles this last week or so. We've done castle tower, castle ruin tower, castle collapse tower. We've done a castle wall with damage, and now we're going to do a castle wall collapsed. Basically these types of sections here. So if you followed along my previous video, you should basically have this image or maybe two images that look like this. You will have to have at least this image done because we will be working from this tutorial. So what we're going to do is we're going to create something that looks a bit like this today. Basically a collapsed wall, and go from there. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a duplicate layer of our good wall. Okay, and we'll call this wall collapsed. I'm going to call it tutorial because I already have a wall collapsed. And we're going to drag that up right to about the middle there. And again, the reason I have these all in the same file is when I'm building a map and I want to add a castle wall, I can just go in here, grab the individual parts that I want, and go from there. Okay. Next, what we want to do is we're going to duplicate this layer because we want a stone wall base, we'll name it. Because basically he's going to reside under everything, and actually just drag him down. And we're actually going to unlink him for now. These four layers, your battlements, basically your outer wall shadow and your wall shadow and your texture, we're going to combine those, merge those down into a single layer. And the reason we do this is because basically we're going to be cutting this wall up, and if we didn't do it, we'd have to apply the exact same selection to each layer. We'll have to apply the exact same drop shadow to each layer. And it's just easier to do it to one layer rather than having to do it to multiples. So next we want to do is cut our wall up, and you can cut it up in as many pieces as you want. I'm just going to cut into basically 3 pieces. Because again, you won't be using the edges. They're just mainly there for initial guide. And so we really won't be using these because basically you'll draw your wall and then you'll cut a section out and say that's collapsed. Because if you use this, you either got to put something here, otherwise your texture won't match up there. So again, here's our first piece, and we're going to cut this guy up into multiple pieces. So again, let's just go like this. And cut him, and he'll be our left, and whoops, here we're going to have a right collapsed, whoops, wrong layer. Again, we're going to drag him over there, and this one we'll just cut into 2 sections. And we really don't have to. You may use this section for if either side is collapsed. That would be a good section for there. But we'll basically apply that to each of those. So paste that. And we'll just drag him up and out of the way. And same with this guy. Now this guy right here, we're just going to clean up slightly because your stone wouldn't be that sharp. Maybe if it was concrete or something, it would be. But that's just a little bit too sharp from there. Okay, next let's go to our left, and we're going to create a group for that. Because again, when you move these when you drag these in, you just want to drag the whole group. You don't want to drag the individual layers. And so we're going to call this collapse left. And then this guy, we're going to create a group as well, and we're going to call him collapse right. And these other guys we're just going to leave out of a group for now. So with our left, we're going to go, and you basically want to grab him and drag him and maybe twist him a little bit. Did he fall straight or not? Did he hit a bit of an angle or something from there? And then you can do the same with the right-hand side is, again, angle him out. Maybe I'll angle him in. Okay. Then we want to add a little perspective to it. So we're going to go to Edit, Transform, Perspective. And basically we're going to shrink down, hey, that's falling away from you. So we're basically going to shrink that down. And how steep you want it depends on actually how big of a fall you wanted it. I'm going to go right about there. Then we'll do the same with this guy. edit, transform, perspective. And we're going to shrink this guy down a little bit, so he sort of collapsed and fell down there. Now you may want to free transform him and just shorten him up, because again, when you shrink them out, they sort of stretch out, and I'll maybe do him a little bit as well from there. Don't have to. It's again, your preference. Next, we're going to apply a drop shadow. Okay, to this guy, and there he is. Now, normally I have a 0 pixel distance because I want my drop shadows to be right above most of my objects. But the fact this guy's sort of slanting down, if I increase the shadow and such, actually I got the opacity way down. We see we're getting a lot of shadow here, and you really wouldn't be casting any shadow here, especially if, if your wall's not touching. So if you have it like that, your wall's not even touching. So now if we apply a drop shadow, you really wouldn't have any shadow there. So what we do is I just shift it off I put it at the angle 180, so it's going that way, and basically I just move it off a little bit. Now let's just increase that a little bit right there. Now we'll do the same to this guy. The only difference is, rather than copy and paste, we're going to change the angle. So he's actually coming from the opposite side. The light's coming from this side going that way. And so that will give this. Now these two guys up in the top, we're going to apply a drop shadow. But we're actually going to set their, again, we don't want it on either side. We actually just want it over above. And so we'll give him that one, and we can either copy and paste or just go like this. Okay. Again, we're not going to be doing a whole lot with these guys. In fact, I'm going to drag him down out of the way for now. Okay, so we're going to work on this left-hand collapse section first. And what we want to do is we now want to add the boulders individually. Now, you could do this 2 different ways. You could, grab a piece of your texture. Grab a piece of your texture and paste it in there, and then apply, some drop shadow to it. Okay, you don't want it near as wide. You want it much more close to the object, and probably a little bit darker. So that will give you, a bunch of boulders, and you can angle those and cut out different pieces and stuff like that. But another way, and I find it easier, is we're going to grab one of our overlays. And if you're not familiar with overlays, I've got a whole tutorial on that. I'm going to grab one of my boulder overlays. As you can see, I've got tons of different shadow overlays. But I'm just going to go and grab this guy because he's got a whole bunch of boulders in there and it looks great. And then I'm going to drag that over here. And we actually want that on the bottom underneath our main texture. And obviously that's way too big as well. So we're going to shrink him down a bit. And let's just zoom back in there. I zoomed out too far. So again, if this is the size of my boulders I basically want to get my texture, my shadow overlay to be similar size or smaller, like this. So you can use these as the underground rubble, and then just have these as your larger bubbles. Now these are probably, we should also probably darken that image up as well, because again it's down below the other guys. You don't want it as bright. But again, that's the preference, whichever way you want to do it. So next we want to do is, whenever you have a shadow overlay, you want, it's basically adding a 3D effect to your layer below that. And right now we don't have any layers below that. So what we're going to go down and grab our stone wall texture. And you may have to repaint this if you don't have it in there, or drag it over from your template file. But basically we want the same texture we used to do the wall. And we're going to basically copy and cut and paste a section out of there. So I'm just going to grab that and go from there. It doesn't have to be exact because we're going to apply a shadow overlay to that. So again, there's my shadow overlay, and here is the texture underneath. Okay, and then we're just going to hide that. And then these 2 layers, we're going to merge down into one. Okay, and the reason I do that is, again, when I apply a shadow mask or something or change it, I'd have to apply it to both. And the fact that I'm pretty much the exact same thing to both, I might as well just make it one layer. Okay, then we're going to apply our shadow mask, and we're going to go to our brush and our opacity. I'm going to raise this up because I'm going to do the edges first in a large format. I could set it all the way up to 100. Anywhere in there is fine. Okay, then I'm going to increase my brush size. Whoops. Okay, increase my brush size, not decrease it, and just get the edges. And this is, the gross adjustments that I want to make. See, again, when you have it high like that, I didn't really want to get the stones because I sort of want that rubble underneath there. So you sort of got to back out with your history. Again, I don't want that hard texture. So what we want to do is get rid of these hard edges. Okay. And then we'll go in and sort of fine tune this afterwards. Now again, you can do some other things like cut and paste. We're gonna, whoops. Reduce our brush a little bit. Okay, let's go there. And just again, what I'm just trying to do is get rid of the hard edges out here. We'll just clean up those real quick. Now, depending upon your background texture, you may or may not need to clean those up edges as much. The lighter the texture or the difference in the contrast, the more you'll have to clean it up. But if it's, a dark grass or a mud or something like that, you don't have to clean it up as much. Because again, see here, we didn't clean it up. You really don't notice that as much. But again, if you're more of a perfectionist, you will want to clean it up. So now we want to start getting into the specific details. So let's zoom in here, and I'm going to go back to my select and drop my opacity down to my under 30s, where I usually like it. And then I'm going to start going along the edges here. And once I start seeing that, I may have to just get that edge back from there, and then just erase these sections. And again, just adjust your brush as needed. Okay, so again, we're just going to go along here. Okay, go into there. Probably this whole guy can go away. And maybe even that guy up. That's okay. And the reason that's okay is because, again, we have this stone wall base, which we're sort of going to drop back in there as needed. And so let's just erase that whole guy because I don't like his edge. So again, we're just moving around. Okay, now I sort of like this rock here, but I don't want, that's a lot of rock. So I'm actually just going to cut him out and leave him there. Sort of like he tumbled away a little bit. Okay, and I'll come back and clean these edges up a little bit. I just want to try and get the general feel for the rocks as we go along. I'm actually going to leave that outer guy there. Let's just clean that up. There we go. Okay, so again, this just takes patience, and this will lengthen this video up a bit, but you know, I just want you to see how we're doing it. We're only going to do the left-hand side just to keep the video somewhat short, but the process is basically the same between the different videos, or between the different sides. Let's actually just cut that guy right into there. Increase my brush. Okay, so if we zoom out to 100%, that's basically what we're starting to see now. So it's starting to look, you know, if we go back down to my previous example, you know, is basically we're starting to see that. And you can sort of see a little hard edge where I didn't clean up enough from there. So again, what we want to do is just keep cleaning this up. And again, obviously, the more flow I have, the less I have to keep going over it, but I like making small changes at a time, so I don't drastically have to undo something. So let's actually just blow him out. There we go. A little bit too far zoomed in for my preference. Okay, so go into there. Again, we'll have this guy sort of standing out there. He sort of tumbled away from the main collapse. So he's just there. You can hear my dogs fighting in the background or playing. Sorry if they're making it a little bit hard to hear, but they're dogs. Not going to control them too much. In fact, I usually don't hear them most of the time because I've grown to ignoring them. No. So, but sorry about that. So again, we're just going to create some spaces in between here. It's sort of falling through. Okay, so again, we're starting to get a rock pile similar to here. And again, whoops, your exact shape you can have. And you can combine the two methods as I sort of have done here. You know, I've got this rock and I can drag that. And so obviously I've got that. So I can drag those around and put those, you know, sort of like larger chunks that broke away. But that's basically it for how to do this. Obviously, this needs to be cleaned up quite a bit. I should be cleaning up all of these areas in here. You know, basically you want them all clear, you know, and go like that. But to do that will take me probably another 10 or 15 minutes, and I just don't want to make this video too long, as most people don't watch a video that long. But again, you can see this general shape. Again, sometimes I like to erase the things in between, so you can sort of see, you know, the ground below. So again, if I throw my grass layer on, you know, you can sort of see the grass coming up in between certain sections. Let's get to 100%. There we go. So I may erase some of this because it looks a little bit too dense in there for the rocks. Because again, if you go down to here, you know, I've got full sections where sections are erased and stuff like that. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll go from there. Thanks for watching. Bye.